Set several months after the events of Dishonored 2, Death of the Outsider follows the story of Billie Lurk. Having been reaffirmed by Emily that she's not evil despite previously hanging out with Daud, the man who killed Emily's mother, Billie decides to be a good person and return to her old life of hanging out with Daud. And you'll never believe what they plan to do. Unlike previous installments, the chaos system isn't part of this game, which makes it difficult for me to pretend it's a morality system for comedic effect, and ultimately the good and bad endings will only come down to one choice at the end, and you'll never believe what choice it is. Billie pulls some old contacts for leads and finds out that Daud may be hanging out at an underground boxing club run by cultists called the Eyeless that use black magic and bone charms to boost their fighters' powers. Basically, they took the hypothetical of what if we just had an Olympics but everyone could use performance-enhancing drugs and did it with fantasy magic, which fucking rules. Also, the Eyeless have been found to be using unidentified powders, noxious plants, and vials of unknown liquid. This cult sounds cool as hell, but they're the antagonists, so sadly we need to be narcs and take them down. To help with that, Billie can now hear the thoughts of rats because of a talisman her former lover Deirdre stole for her, and neither thought the other was weird for wanting it. Nice to know she found another loner to be lonely together with. Unfortunately, Deirdre was killed many years ago by a dandy, who Billie then murdered, which is why she originally went into hiding. Hell yeah, be gay, do crimes. Most of this info isn't in-game and I had to look it up, which is a shame because I'd have probably been gassing Billie up in previous videos if I knew she was the coolest character in the game. On the way to the boxing club, we tried to gather some intel from the local rats. Unfortunately, they seem to have been taught by the Outsider because they also speak in pedantic riddles and flowery nonsense, so much for that power. We make it to the boxing club and find out that Daud the magical mystery man is actually being kept in a fugue state and forced to fight after the Eyeless managed to kidnap him. Somehow. They're keeping Daud's powers at bay with a suppression device, which has a note saying if he gets loose, dear God, he'll kill us all for the love of the Outsider. Never turn off the suppressor. If it ever loses power even for a second, you won't even know because you'll be dead before you realise. Good job they didn't get a backup suppressor, left a note saying exactly what it does, kept it out in the open, and don't care if a stranger hangs around near it. Maybe they lost some IQ points from all those unidentified powders. Daud immediately knocks out the gang members, tells us we're gonna kill the Outsider, and leaves for Billie's boat as soon as guards appear. Typical manager delegating grunt work to his apprentice. Back to the good old days, eh, Billie? We make sure to burn a dog to death before we leave. It was old and diseased. You were putting it out of its misery. You're still a good person. And make our way back to the boat. Billie reminisces about first meeting Daud when she was a kid. He killed 3 men without making a sound and shared his black magic powers with her. A heartwarming tale for all ages. She complains about a recurring dream where she loses her arm and eye in a fight with street guards. Bit of an anticlimactic explanation for why she had those missing in the previous game. And it doesn't explain why Billie has both her arms and eyes in this game since it's rare for those to grow back. Turns out the time travel shenanigans from Dishonored 2 have messed with the timelines a bit and she never lost them. Hopefully no one comes along and corrects that. Can you imagine? Some kind of time cop coming along to, oh damn it Outsider, you are so getting shanked. See, it's shit like this which is why I used to call you the devil. Coming along to clean up the timeline mess that he caused by giving Emily the time travel device. Though to be fair, he replaced the arm and eye with void artifacts that give us new powers, so maybe we'll just give him a light stabbing. Daud says his connection to the void is fading and he wants to kill the Outsider before he fades away. Does the Outsider really deserve to die though? I mean, yeah, he's a dick, but maybe he's just misunderstood. Daud's no angel, so taking his word for it doesn't seem wise. Guess we'll have to weigh up the pros and cons as we go along. Plus, Daud seems to be implying his void powers are what keeps him alive, which makes the Outsider seem great. Strength, speed, magic powers, longer lifespan. I'm not saying it's all sunshine and roses, but if I were given the opportunity, you're damn right I'm taking the make me better in every way dark magic panacea. In the meantime, Daud lets us know the Eyeless have a relic, the twin-bladed knife used in the ritual that made the Outsider thousands of years ago, and it's here in Karnaca. How convenient that this cult who wasn't mentioned in any previous game has suddenly appeared with a relic capable of killing the Outsider. So we're off to gather info on where the knife is being held while Daud takes a nap and makes sure not to die. We need to know who leads the Eyeless, but thankfully they all have the same tattoo, just in case a video game protagonist needed to identify them. And Daud knows that the low-level Eyeless talks about getting inked in the red camellia, so we go there and give ourselves the same tattoo. Because who doesn't know how to use a tattoo gun and has the skill to use it on themselves? We managed to get here pretty easily because one of the powers the void artifacts gives us is displace, which is different from blink because it's less convenient. We find the names of 2 others who also got these tattoos, the singer Shan Yun and a city administrator called Ivan Jacoby, so we'll go pay them a visit. Shan's safe is voice activated, specifically by his voice singing a specific song. Would be a tricky challenge to maybe force or bribe him into singing the song, maybe sneakily find a way to record him, except he already recorded himself singing the song, and keeps a copy in his house, and has an audiograph set up next to the safe. This dude might have been partaking in a few too many unknown liquids. We open the safe and find a key and a note saying it's one of 2 required to open a safety deposit box in a bank that holds the knife. The other key is held by Ivan, who's practicing a speech whilst pacing around a plaza. There's a trap door he occasionally wanders over, so we could get his office key by dropping him through there. It would be slightly rude though, as it's quite unexpected and kills him, so we simply sneak the office key from him while he's distracted and politely break into his house to take his vault key. We can also open his safe to find evidence he murdered someone. But who are we to judge? With that done, we're off to Dolores Michael's Deposit and Loan Bank to make a withdrawal. You'd think the reality warping artifact held by a magic cult would be kept in some magically sealed trans-dimensional void zone or something, but nope. Cultist, criminal or legit business, nothing beats a safety deposit box. Just gotta infiltrate the building, get around the sophisticated security system, put gas in the air vents beforehand to knock everyone out, and hey presto, magic knife that fuses with our arm. For some reason. Before we pull off this heist, we say, "Okay Daud, I'm off. You're not gonna die while I'm gone, right? Daud, look at me. You're gonna be alive when I get back, okay?" Okay. After we get the knife, the outsider appears and says, "Yeah, Daud's dead." Damn it, Daud, you had one job. Oh well, at least we got the knife. Ah, son of a bitch. While spoiling that Daud died, although it's not much of a spoiler because let's face it, he probably died from being crushed under the hilarious amount of death flags he had on him, the outsider takes the knife and toys with it. He already knew we were planning to steal the knife to kill him, so I guess he might as well get a look at it. He talks about how you were both abandoned to uncertain futures on dangerous streets and taken in by murderers. Daud spared Billie, but the outsider received no such treatment, so maybe we should spare him when we get the chance, hint hint, Billie scolds him to give the knife back like he's a toddler. He says that the knife took his name from him. Even now he's being vague despite knowing we're coming to kill him. But maybe we wouldn't be so gung-ho about it if he just spoke coherently. He's a child playing at God, giving powers and knowledge to randomers and seeing what happens in his sandbox these characters call reality. But he acknowledges that Billie is different, for some reason. He said a similar thing to Daud about Jessamine after he killed her. Maybe she was destined to kill the outsider, and that's why he said Daud made a mistake killing her. Or maybe the writers thought it sounded cool. Who knows? Trying to apply rules and understanding to gods is a bit of a fool's errand. But I like playing the fool, so I'm gonna do it. Plus, this is the game where we get explanations for how the void works, so all our questions will surely be answered in the end. After he's gone, Billie notes that the outsider is always watching, but she's staring right back. I love Billie. She's so cool. If there's ever a Dishonored 3, they should let her be the main character taking down the corrupt aristocracy of Emily and Corvo. She did shit-talk Emily to her face in the last game, so maybe she knows what's up. Whilst we were stealing the knife, we also found a note in the bank owner's drawer saying some documents detailing how to get to the void were stolen from her and sent to the Royal Conservatory. She was planning on betraying the Eyeless and using that info herself, and so is quite annoyed it might get into the hands of the overseers. Though if it wasn't these documents getting stolen, something else would have happened to catch her out considering she's the kind of idiot who voluntarily leaves a paper trail of her crimes. Before we head off, Billie gives Daud a Viking burial, because he's just so cool and couldn't just be thrown into the sea, so he gets to die as he lived, with a bit more respect than he probably deserves. And now, Billie doesn't have a ship. She doesn't need one, apparently. Ah well, it was falling apart anyway. Much like Daud. Off to the Royal Conservatory. The conservatory has undergone a couple changes since we were last here, with overseers flooding the building to find out about what went on. And of course with that comes paperwork. Can't always be killing witches. Sometimes you gotta write down how and why you killed them, so your supervisor can be sure you're on track to reach your witch killing quota. After some wandering around to understand the culture and sophistication of the works on display and get attacked by floating posters, we use electroshock therapy and chokeholds on all the zealots to get a silver graph, which shows we need to go to Amaira Moshindeiri North Quarry in the mountains to find the headquarters of the Eyeless, so I guess we're off to crash a Bilderberg meeting. Before we enter the quarry, the outsider shows up to have one last chat in our world before we enter the void. Billie tells the outsider off for not helping out those who needed his help. She always wanted him to speak to her, as did every street kid or desperate wretch pushed to the edge, so why didn't he? He tells her people are greedy. They come to this place wanting forbidden knowledge, to elude death, but they're never satisfied no matter how much they take, which is hard to deny with Delilah almost achieving immortality but still trying to remake reality. He says next time we meet, it'll be face to face, and you'll have the choice of killing him like Daud asks you to, or finding another way. Suddenly, when we're actually pretty close to ending his life, he can speak clearly and concisely. He then mentions the god that came before him, but isn't clear about what that means before leaving. Also, have his hands always been that big? The eyeless, being a cult, of course make sure to kill their own if they question why their faces are getting covered in stone and that maybe staring into the void isn't good for their long-term mental and physical health, what with it eventually turning them into envisioned. The cultists talk about how it's their greatest desire to evolve into this Pokemon because they're creatures of the void who get to just hang out there. Yeah, okay, if this is what it takes, maybe I spoke too soon when I said I'd want the outsider powers. While making our way through the quarry and cultists, we keep hearing about the Eye of the Dead God, communing with the Eye, and how the Eye gives them the power. Is this a metaphor? Oh dear lord! Touching the Eye allows us to enter the void. Always interesting when religious relics have actual powers in fantasy. Like, how would this be hidden away? Everyone would know about it, want it, talk about it. It's a massive eye that lets you enter the void. Imagine if right now there was an actual gateway to purgatory in like a rural Nebraskan coal mine. Yeah, they don't have the internet in this to capture 4K footage of tourists doing the latest dance craze in the pain dimension, but even in the 1800s I find it hard to believe they could keep this on the down low. Two people can keep a secret if one of them is dead. This is dozens of people trying to keep the giant Eye of a Dead God secret. Being in the void lets us find the study notes from one of the cultists, Malchiode, who found out that the mark of the outsider is from an ancient language and is actually his name. And if we speak his name to him, it will release him. For some reason, and thus we'll get to see the good ending, and they make sure you know this by having Billie say,
"What? The mark is the outsider's name."
Just in case you didn't read the diary entry. The voice acting implies a lot. Felt like she was saying, if more of you actually read the text I wouldn't have to say this. Malchiode also got impaled in the void, presumably by the envisioned. He died as he lived, as a throwaway plot point. We reach the warp gate that can take us to the ritual hold where the outsider is trapped, the one place the cultists refuse to go, for plot reasons. The highest ranking members of the Eyeless are all academics, so of course they would never decide whether to enter the ritual hold. They've spent years debating the pros and cons of the metaphysical impact on the human socio-economic condition of those who choose to enter the warp gate. Meanwhile, Billie's on a mission, so jumps right in. We reach the outsider's prison and find Daud's Force Ghost is here too to see the murder up close. Billie observes that the outsider looks like he's in pain. He's not a horror, not even a threat. He's bitch-made, a loser, a big old baby. Look at his little cheeks. Daud isn't too keen on where you're going with this, because of course you're wondering whether you should kill or release him, and thus, Daud and Billie start an academic debate to decide. The debate over killing or releasing the outsider comes down to this: does power corrupt, or does it reveal? Is the outsider giving powers to cause chaos, or show who people really are? Daud argues the former. He really wants to push the idea that the outsider made him who he is, refusing to take responsibility right up until the end. Thinks he's already redeemed himself and that everything else is the outsider's doing. He's pushing people over the edge and not wanting to be blamed for the fall. He shouldn't get to decide who gets such oppressive power. That's what politicians are for. So maybe let's just stab him in the heart? Give him the old amateur surgery? The old slice and dice? Come on. Billie argues that people don't get to deflect blame back to the outsider for the gifts he gives, and that his powers do not always lead to evil. Billie would have likely died in the streets long ago had she not received the outsider's powers from Daud, but was able to pursue both revenge and a safer life because of it. Canonically, Corvo used the outsider's powers to kill some people, but only to secure his path to rescuing Emily, after which he just stayed as her protector. Delilah used the powers to pursue immortality and try to reshape reality. The outsider doesn't corrupt people, they use the power to corrupt themselves. Give someone the power to do what they want, and you'll find out what they always wanted to do. That's why I always choose the nice dialogue options in games. Yes, I am implying that if you choose rude dialogue options you would be corrupted by power. Making this video gives me that power, and I will happily be corrupted by it. So yeah, we should let him live. Billie tells Daud the outsider was just some kid who the cultists made this way, and she knows his name is the mark. If Daud would say his name, which he can do apparently because only the dead can read it, he could free the outsider. Not sure how you make a language only the dead can speak. Anyway, Daud gives in, says forgiveness is a rare thing and that she's better than he was. He whispers the outsider's name, says goodbye, and the outsider returns to life. And yeah, this means the void will no longer be under the control of an avatar and can affect anyone it wishes to, just spraying void power all over the place, and so the best option would probably be to leave him here as a sacrificial lamb to protect the rest of humanity. But that was the cult's argument for keeping him here, and they're weird, so the game doesn't give us that option. Besides, every choice will bring chaos. There is no good and bad, chaos and structure. What does it even mean to be good when we're talking about removing the living being whose eternal torment is preventing eternal darkness, whose suffering holds reality together? Ultimately, taking away his agency was the original sin. He should be released and allowed to live out his mortal life without being an avatar of the void. You are a good Okay, but seriously, what's with those humongous hands? All this time it turns out the outsider is cursed to have massive mitts. It's almost worse to let him live because he'll be going into a world not built for him. He'll never be able to pick up a regular sized mug by the handle. He'll always have to wait for his hot drinks to cool because he'll have to hold them in his preposterous palms. Truly he is doomed to walk the land, dragging his knuckles and tearing up the ground as he goes. He would have caused less destruction if he'd stayed the outsider. Best to just kill him. You are a good person. And so we wrap up the Dishonored series, and we got all our questions answered. What's the void? This place. Who was the outsider? This guy. And what came before him? Giant Eye. Here's hoping for a Dishonored 3.